Sarah Martinez looked at the clock on her patrol car dashboard. It was 11:15 p.m. on a Tuesday night. The streets of Millbrook were quiet. Most people were already asleep in their homes. Only a few cars moved on the roads at this late hour. Sarah had been a police officer for 3 years now. She loved her job, even the night shifts. The night was peaceful most of the time. She could drive around the town and make sure everyone was safe. She took her job very seriously. Every rule mattered to her. Every law was important. Tonight felt different somehow. Sarah could not explain why, but she had a strange feeling. Something was going to happen. She had learned to trust these feelings during her 3 years on the force. Her training officer had told her that good cops develop a sixth sense. They can feel when something is not right. Sarah drove slowly down Main Street. The streetlights made long shadows on the empty road. A few shops still had their lights on. The 24-hour diner had 2 customers inside. An old man sat at the counter drinking coffee. A young woman in scrubs was eating a late dinner. She was probably a nurse getting off work from the hospital. The radio was quiet tonight. No calls for help. No accidents. No crimes reported. This was unusual for a Tuesday night. Usually there were at least a few calls by this time. Sarah was grateful for the quiet night, but she stayed alert. In police work, things could change fast. Sarah turned onto Maple Avenue. This was a nice part of town. Big houses with perfect lawns lined both sides of the street. Most families who lived here had good jobs and quiet lives. Crime was rare in this neighborhood, but Sarah still patrolled it carefully. Rich or poor, everyone deserved protection. She drove past the Thompson house. Mr. Thompson was a banker. His wife taught at the elementary school. They had 2 teenage kids. Sarah had helped their son once when his bike was stolen. The family had been very grateful. Mrs. Thompson still waved at Sarah whenever she saw her patrol car. Next was the Wilson family home. Dr. Wilson worked at the hospital. His wife was a lawyer. They traveled a lot for work. Their house was dark tonight. They were probably away on another business trip. Sarah made a mental note to check their house more often while they were gone. The Rodriguez family lived in the blue house with white shutters. Mr. Rodriguez owned 3 restaurants in turn. Mrs. Rodriguez volunteered at the animal shelter. Their house always smelled like amazing food. Sometimes Mrs. Rodriguez would give Sarah homemade cookies when she stopped by during the day shift. Sarah knew most of the families on her patrol route. This was one of the things she loved about working in a small town. In big cities, cops rarely got to know the people they protected. But here in Millbrook, she was part of the community. People trusted her. Children waved at her. Store owners knew her name. As Sarah continued down Maple Avenue, she thought about her own life. She was 26 years old and single. Her job was demanding, but she loved it. Her parents had wanted her to be a teacher like her sister. But Sarah had always wanted to help people in a different way. She wanted to catch bad guys and keep good people safe. The police academy had been hard. Sarah was not the strongest or the fastest in her class, but she was one of the smartest. She studied harder than anyone else. She memorized every law and every procedure. Her instructors noticed her dedication. They knew she would be a good cop. When Sarah graduated from the academy, she had many job offers. Big city departments wanted her. They offered more money and faster promotions. But Sarah chose Millbrook. She wanted to work in a place where she could make a real difference. She wanted to know the people she protected. Chief Harrison had hired Sarah himself. He was impressed by her test scores and her interview. He told her that Millbrook needed officers who cared about the community. Sarah promised him that she would always do her best work. She would treat every person fairly. She would never let power go to her head. Now, 3 years later, Sarah had kept that promise. She had never taken a bribe. She had never used excessive force. She treated rich people and poor people the same way. Her fellow officers respected her. The community trusted her. Chief Harrison often praised her work. Sarah loved the night shift because it was quieter. She could think while she patrolled. She could really observe what was happening in her town. During the day shift, there were too many calls and too much paperwork. The night shift let her be a real community police officer. As Sarah reached the end of Maple Avenue, she turned around to patrol the street again. The night was still young. She had 6 more hours before her shift ended. She hoped it would stay quiet, but she was ready for anything. The radio crackled softly. Sarah listened, but it was just another officer checking in from across town. Everything was normal. Sarah continued her slow patrol down Maple Avenue. She checked each house as she passed. All the windows were dark. All the cars were parked safely in driveways. Sarah thought about her goals for the future. She wanted to become a detective someday. She loved solving puzzles and helping victims get justice. Chief Harrison had told her that she had detective potential. He said she had the right mind for investigative work. Sarah was taking criminal justice classes at the community college to prepare herself. The clock on her dashboard now showed 11:28 p.m. Sarah had been patrolling for over an hour. The night was peaceful and calm. She felt good about her work. She was protecting her community and serving the people she cared about. Sarah had no idea that in just a few minutes everything would change. She had no idea that she was about to face the biggest challenge of her career. She had no idea that her next traffic stop would test everything she believed about justice and fairness. For now, Sarah Martinez was just a dedicated police officer doing her job on a quiet Tuesday night. She was alert, professional, and ready to serve. She was exactly the kind of officer that Millbrook needed, and she was about to prove it in a way she never expected. Sarah was driving slowly down Maple Avenue when she saw the headlights behind her. A dark car was coming up fast. Too fast for this quiet residential street. The speed limit here was 25 miles per hour. The car behind her was going much faster than that. Sarah slowed down and moved to the right side of the road. She wanted to get a better look at the speeding car. As it passed her, she could see it was a dark blue sedan. It looked expensive. The car was weaving slightly between the lanes. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to notice. Sarah looked at her speedometer as she followed the car. It was going 40 miles per hour in a 25 mph zone. That was 15 miles over the speed limit. Sarah had to make a decision. Should she pull the car over or just give the driver a warning? The decision was easy for Sarah. She always followed the rules. Speed limits existed for a reason. This was a neighborhood where children lived. During the day, kids rode bikes on these streets. Families walked their dogs here. Even at night, someone could be out for a walk. Speeding was dangerous and against the law. Sarah turned on her emergency lights. The red and blue lights flashed behind the speeding car. She also turned on her siren for a few seconds to get the driver's attention. The siren echoed through the quiet neighborhood. A few house lights turned on as people looked out their windows to see what was happening. The dark sedan slowed down immediately. The driver pulled over to the right side of the road and stopped. Sarah was glad the driver was cooperating. Some people tried to run when police tried to stop them. Others argued or got angry. This driver seemed to understand what was expected. Sarah parked her patrol car behind the sedan. She left her emergency lights on so other cars would see them. She also turned on her spotlight to light up the inside of the car she had stopped. This was standard safety procedure. Sarah needed to see what the driver was doing at all times. Before getting out of her car, Sarah called in the traffic stop on her radio. She gave the dispatcher the location and the license plate number of the car. This was important for safety. If something happened to Sarah, other officers would know where to find her. The dispatcher confirmed the information and told Sarah to be careful. Sarah got out of her patrol car and walked toward the sedan. She kept her right hand near her service weapon just in case. This was part of her training. Most traffic stops were routine and safe, but police officers had to be ready for anything. Sarah had never had to draw her weapon in 3 years, but she was always prepared. As Sarah approached the car, she noticed several things. The car was very clean and well-maintained. It had expensive-looking wheels and dark-tinted windows. The license plate was current and properly displayed. Everything about the car suggested that the owner took good care of it. Sarah stopped at the back of the car first. She looked at the license plate again and checked that it matched what she had radioed in. She also looked inside the back seat through the rear window. The back seat was empty except for a briefcase and what looked like a police radio. This made Sarah pause for a moment. Why would a civilian have a police radio in their car? Maybe the person was a police scanner enthusiast. Some people like to listen to police calls as a hobby. Or maybe the person worked for the city in some capacity. Sarah decided to continue with the traffic stop and find out. Sarah walked to the driver's side of the car. She positioned herself slightly behind the driver's door. This gave her a good view of the driver while keeping her safe if something went wrong. She tapped gently on the window with her flashlight. The window rolled down smoothly. Sarah could see the driver clearly now. It was a middle-aged man, probably in his 50s. He had gray hair and was wearing casual clothes. a polo shirt and khaki pants. He looked like he might be coming home from dinner or a social event. The man looked up at Sarah with a calm expression. He did not seem nervous or upset about being stopped. In fact, he seemed almost amused. There was a slight smile on his face. His hands were visible on the steering wheel, which was good. Sarah could see that he was not reaching for anything dangerous. "Good evening, sir," Sarah said in her professional voice. "I'm Officer Martinez with the Millbrook Police Department. The reason I stopped you tonight is that I observed you traveling 40 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. I'm going to need to see your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance." The man nodded politely. "Good evening, Officer Martinez," he replied. His voice was calm and friendly. "I can get those documents for you right away. My license is in my wallet in my back pocket. The registration and insurance card are in the glove compartment." Sarah appreciated that the driver was explaining where everything was before reaching for it. This showed that he understood police procedures. Many people did not realize that sudden movements during a traffic stop could be seen as threatening. This man was being very cooperative. "That's fine, sir," Sarah said. "Please get your license first, and then we'll get the other documents." The man slowly reached for his back pocket. He pulled out a leather wallet and opened it carefully. Sarah watched his movements closely. The man found his driver's license and handed it to Sarah through the window. Sarah took the license and shined her flashlight on it. At first, she was just checking to make sure it was a valid license. She looked at the photo to confirm it matched the driver. Then she started to read the name on the license. The name made Sarah do a double take. She read it again to make sure she was seeing correctly. The license belonged to Robert Harrison. The address listed was here in Millbrook. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat as she realized what she was looking at. Robert Harrison was not just any resident of Millbrook. Robert Harrison was Chief Robert Harrison of the Millbrook Police Department. He was Sarah's boss. He was the man who had hired her 3 years ago. He was the person she reported to every day at work. Sarah looked up from the license at the man in the car. Now that she knew who he was, she could see the resemblance to the Chief Harrison she knew at work. But he looked different in casual clothes. At work, he always wore his uniform or a suit. Sarah had never seen him in a polo shirt and khaki pants. Chief Harrison was watching Sarah's face as recognition dawned on her. His slight smile grew a little bigger. He seemed to be enjoying her surprise, but he did not say anything. He just waited to see how Sarah would handle the situation. Sarah felt her mouth go dry. Her hand started to shake slightly. She had just pulled over her own police chief for speeding. What was she supposed to do now? How was she supposed to handle this situation? Her training had never covered what to do when you stopped your own boss. Sarah stared at the driver's license in her hand. The name Robert Harrison seemed to glow under her flashlight. She read it 3 times to make sure she was not making a mistake. This was definitely Chief Harrison's license. The photo matched the man sitting in the car. The address was correct. There was no doubt about it. Sarah felt like her world had just turned upside down. In 3 years of police work, she had never been in a situation like this. She had stopped hundreds of cars. She had given tickets to doctors, lawyers, teachers, and business owners. But she had never stopped someone she worked with. And she had certainly never stopped her own boss. Chief Harrison continued to watch Sarah with that slight smile on his face. He seemed to be waiting to see what she would do. He did not look angry or upset. He did not seem embarrassed about being caught speeding. If anything, he looked curious about how Sarah would handle the situation. Sarah's mind was racing. She thought about all the things that could happen next. Would Chief Harrison be angry at her for stopping him? Would this hurt her career? Would the other officers make fun of her for giving the chief a ticket? Or would they make fun of her for not giving him a ticket? Sarah tried to remember her training. What were the rules about stopping fellow police officers? She had learned about professional courtesy in the academy. This meant that officers sometimes gave other officers warnings instead of tickets for minor violations. But the instructors had also taught that everyone should be equal under the law. Sarah thought about her first day on the job. Chief Harrison had given a speech to all the new officers. He had talked about integrity and fairness. He had said that good police officers treat everyone the same way, no matter who they are. He had said that the law applies to everyone equally, but this was different. This was not just any police officer. This was the chief of police. This was the man who could promote Sarah or fire her. This was the person who wrote her performance reviews. This was her boss's boss's boss. Sarah realized she had been standing there in silence for too long. She needed to say something, but what? How do you tell your police chief that you are going to give him a ticket? How do you explain to your boss that he was breaking the law?
Chief Harrison, Sarah finally said.
Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. It was higher than usual and a little shaky. I didn't recognize you at first. You're not in uniform. Chief Harrison chuckled softly. No, I'm not, he agreed. I was having dinner with my wife at Romano's restaurant. We were celebrating some good news about our son. I guess I wasn't paying attention to my speed on the way home. Sarah nodded, but she was still confused about what to do next. She looked down at the license in her hand again. She looked back at Chief Harrison. She felt like she was frozen in place. Is everything all right, Martinez? Chief Harrison asked. His voice was kind but professional. You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah took a deep breath. She tried to calm her nerves and think clearly. She was a police officer. She had a job to do. The fact that she had stopped her boss did not change the fact that he had been speeding. The law was the law no matter who broke it. Sir, Sarah said, trying to make her voice sound more normal. You were traveling 40 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. That's 15 miles over the speed limit. I clocked you on my radar as you passed my patrol car. Chief Harrison nodded seriously. I believe you're right, Martinez. I was probably going too fast. Like I said, my wife called with good news about our son getting into college. I was excited and not paying attention to my driving. That's no excuse, of course. Sarah was surprised by Chief Harrison's response. He was not trying to deny that he had been speeding. He was not trying to use his position to get out of trouble. He was admitting that he had broken the law. This made Sarah feel a little better, but she was still not sure what to do. I still need to see your registration and insurance card, Sarah said. She was trying to follow normal procedure, even though nothing about this situation was normal. Of course, Chief Harrison said. He reached slowly toward his glove compartment. The registration should be right here. He opened the glove compartment and pulled out a small folder. Inside were the registration and insurance documents. Sarah took the papers and examined them carefully. Everything was in order. The car was registered to Robert Harrison at his home address in Millbrook. The insurance was current and valid. Sarah handed the documents back to Chief Harrison. Thank you, sir, Sarah said. She was still holding his driver's license. She needed to decide what to do next. Should she go back to her patrol car and write a ticket? Should she just give him a warning? Should she pretend this never happened? Sarah thought about all the things Chief Harrison had taught her. He had always said that police officers must have integrity. They must do the right thing even when it is difficult. They must treat everyone fairly, regardless of their position or status. But what was the right thing to do in this situation? Sarah had never been taught how to handle this exact scenario. She was on her own to figure out what was correct and what was fair. Chief Harrison seemed to sense Sarah's internal struggle. Martinez, he said gently, I want you to handle this stop exactly the way you would handle any other traffic stop. Don't treat me any differently because of who I am. Do your job the way you were trained to do it. Sarah looked at Chief Harrison carefully. Was he testing her? Was this some kind of evaluation? Or was he genuinely telling her to follow standard procedure? She could not tell from his expression what he was thinking. Sir, Sarah said slowly, are you sure about that? You want me to treat this like any other traffic stop? Chief Harrison nodded firmly. That's exactly what I want, Martinez. I was speeding. You caught me. Now you need to decide what to do about it. I don't want any special treatment because I'm the chief. I want you to do whatever you would do if I were any other citizen. Sarah felt a new kind of pressure now. Chief Harrison was essentially asking her to make a decision that could affect both of their careers. If she gave him a ticket, would that show integrity or disrespect? If she gave him a warning, would that show good judgment or favoritism? Sarah thought about the oath she had taken when she became a police officer. She had promised to uphold the law fairly and equally for all people. She had promised to do her duty without fear or favor. She had promised to serve and protect everyone in her community. Chief Harrison was part of her community. He was also a person who had broken the law. The fact that he was her boss did not change those facts. Sarah began to realize what she had to do. She had to treat Chief Harrison exactly like she would treat anyone else who was caught speeding. Sarah took another deep breath. She made her decision. She would follow her training and do her job properly. She would show Chief Harrison that he had trained her well. She would prove that she was the kind of officer who could be trusted to do the right thing, no matter how difficult it might be. Chief Harrison looked at Sarah with a calm expression. He could see that she was struggling with what to do. Her face showed the conflict she was feeling inside. She was a good officer who always tried to do the right thing. But this situation was unlike anything she had faced before. "Take your time, Martinez," Chief Harrison said softly. "I know this is an unusual situation for you, but I want you to remember everything you've learned about being a police officer. Think about what we've talked about in our department meetings. Think about the oath you took when you joined the force." Sarah nodded, but her hands were still shaking slightly. She was holding Chief Harrison's driver's license, and she needed to make a decision. Should she write him a ticket or give him a warning? Both choices seemed wrong and right at the same time. "Sir," Sarah said, her voice still uncertain, "I need to ask you something. Are you testing me right now? Is this some kind of evaluation of my performance? Because if it is, I need to know." Chief Harrison shook his head. "No, Martinez. This is not a test. This is a real traffic stop. I was really speeding, and you really caught me. I'm not testing you or evaluating you. I'm just a citizen who broke the law, and you're the police officer who stopped me." Sarah felt a little relief knowing this was not a planned test, but that relief was quickly replaced by more anxiety. If this was real, then her decision would have real consequences. Whatever she chose to do would affect her relationship with Chief Harrison, and possibly her entire career. "Can I ask you why you were speeding, sir?" Sarah said. She was trying to gather more information before making her decision. Chief Harrison smiled broadly. "My wife called me while I was driving home from the restaurant. Our son Tommy just got accepted to the state university. He's been working so hard for this. His grades weren't perfect, but he wrote an amazing essay about wanting to become a teacher. We're so proud of him." Sarah could hear the genuine happiness in Chief Harrison's voice. She could tell that he was truly excited about his son's acceptance to college. This was a father celebrating his child's success. But Sarah also knew that being happy was not an excuse for breaking the law. "That's wonderful news about your son," Sarah said. "You must be very proud. But sir, you know that being distracted while driving is dangerous. Even good news can be a distraction." Chief Harrison nodded seriously. "You're absolutely right, Martinez. I should have pulled over to take the call. Or I should have waited until I got home to hear the news. Being excited is not an excuse for speeding through a residential neighborhood. I know better than that." Sarah was impressed by Chief Harrison's honesty. He was not trying to make excuses or use his position to avoid responsibility. He was admitting that he had made a mistake. This made Sarah respect him even more, but it also made her decision harder. "Sir," Sarah said, "I want you to know that I have a lot of respect for you. You hired me 3 years ago, and you've been a great leader. You've taught me so much about being a good police officer. This is really difficult for me." Chief Harrison leaned forward slightly in his seat. "Martinez, can I tell you something? The fact that this is difficult for you shows me that you're exactly the kind of officer I thought you were when I hired you. A bad officer would either write me a ticket to show off, or let me go to kiss up to the boss. A good officer struggles with the decision because they want to do what's right." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. She was touched by Chief Harrison's words, but she was still confused about what to do. She had been standing beside his car for several minutes now. She needed to make a decision soon. "What would you do if you were in my position?" Sarah asked. Chief Harrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Martinez, I can't tell you what to do. That would not be fair to you or to the community we serve. You have to make this decision based on your own judgment and your own conscience. That's what being a police officer means." Sarah looked down at the driver's license in her hand again. She thought about all the traffic stops she had made in her career. She thought about all the people she had given tickets to and all the people she had given warnings to. How did she decide which was appropriate? Usually, Sarah gave warnings to people who were polite and cooperative, who admitted their mistakes and who seemed genuinely sorry. She gave tickets to people who were rude, who denied obvious violations, or who seemed like they would keep breaking the law if they did not face consequences. Chief Harrison had been polite and cooperative. He had admitted his mistake. He seemed genuinely sorry. Under normal circumstances, Sarah might have given him a warning. But these were not normal circumstances. This was the chief of police. Sarah thought about what message her decision would send. If she gave Chief Harrison a warning, Would people think that police officers got special treatment? Would they lose trust in the fairness of the police department? Would other officers think they could speed without consequences? On the other hand, if she gave Chief Harrison a ticket, would that damage their working relationship? Would he be angry with her? Would it affect her chances for promotion or special assignments? Would the other officers think she was trying to show off? Sarah realized that no matter what she decided, some people would criticize her choice. She could not make everyone happy. She could only try to do what she thought was right. "Sir," Sarah said finally, "I need to go back to my patrol car for a few minutes. I need to think about this and make my decision. Is that okay?" Chief Harrison nodded. "Of course, Martinez. Take all the time you need. This is an important decision, and you should not rush it." Sarah walked back to her patrol car with Chief Harrison's driver's license still in her hand. She sat in the driver's seat and closed the door. She needed a quiet moment to think without Chief Harrison watching her. Sarah looked at herself in the rearview mirror. She saw a young police officer who was facing the biggest test of her career. She had always prided herself on being fair and honest. Now she had a chance to prove those qualities under the most difficult circumstances possible. Sarah thought about why she had become a police officer in the first place. She had wanted to help people and make her community safer. She had wanted to uphold justice and protect the innocent. She had wanted to be someone people could trust and respect. All of those goals required integrity. They required doing the right thing even when it was hard. They required treating everyone equally under the law. Sarah began to see her path forward more clearly. She picked up her citation book from the passenger seat. She looked at the blank ticket form. Then she looked up at Chief Harrison's car in front of her. She made her decision. Sarah sat in her patrol car holding the citation book in her hands. The blank ticket seemed to stare back at her. She had filled out hundreds of these forms during her 3 years as a police officer, but none of them had ever felt as important as this one. She looked through her windshield at Chief Harrison's car. She could see him sitting patiently in the driver's seat. He was not looking back at her or trying to pressure her in any way. He was just waiting for her to make her decision. This somehow made the situation even more difficult for Sarah. Sarah thought about all the conversations she had had with Chief Harrison over the years. He had always emphasized the importance of integrity in police work. He had told stories about officers who had compromised their values and lost the trust of their communities. He had made it clear that he expected his officers to always do the right thing. But what was the right thing in this situation? Sarah felt like she was being pulled in 2 different directions. Part of her wanted to give Chief Harrison a warning and move on. He was her boss, and he had been good to her. He had given her opportunities to grow and learn. He had supported her career goals. The other part of Sarah knew that giving special treatment to anyone, even her boss, would be wrong. She had taken an oath to uphold the law equally for all people. That oath did not have exceptions for police chiefs or anyone else in positions of authority. Sarah remembered a story Chief Harrison had told during a department meeting several months ago. He had talked about a young officer in another city who had stopped the mayor for drunk driving. The officer could have looked the other way, but instead he arrested the mayor. The mayor was angry and tried to get the officer fired. But the police chief in that city supported the officer because he had done the right thing. That officer showed real courage, Chief Harrison had said to the assembled officers. It would have been easy to let the mayor go and avoid conflict. But the officer knew that the law applies to everyone equally. He knew that his integrity was more important than his comfort. Sarah wondered if Chief Harrison was thinking about that story now. Was he expecting her to show the same kind of courage that young officer had shown? Was this her test of integrity? Even if Chief Harrison said it was not a planned test? Sarah looked down at Chief Harrison's driver's license again. She read his address and saw that he lived only a few blocks away from where they were stopped. He had been driving through his own neighborhood when she caught him speeding. This was where his neighbors lived. This was where children played during the day. Sarah imagined what would happen if a child had been in the street when Chief Harrison was speeding through. At 40 miles per hour instead of 25, he would not have been able to stop in time. The consequences could have been terrible. Speed limits existed to protect people, especially in residential areas. Sarah thought about her own childhood. She had grown up in a neighborhood similar to this one. She remembered riding her bike on quiet streets and feeling safe because drivers went slowly. Her parents had taught her to be careful around cars, but they had also trusted that drivers would obey the speed limits. What kind of message would it send if the chief of police could speed through neighborhoods without consequences? What would happen to the credibility of the police department if people found out that the chief got special treatment? Sarah knew that news of this traffic stop would probably spread through the small town quickly. Sarah also thought about the other officers in the department. What would they think if she let Chief Harrison go without a ticket? Would they expect the same treatment if they were caught breaking the law? Would they lose respect for the rules and procedures they were supposed to enforce? On the other hand, Sarah worried about what would happen to her career if she gave Chief Harrison a ticket. Would he hold it against her? Would he question her judgment or her loyalty? Would the other officers think she was trying to embarrass the chief, or show that she was better than everyone else? Sarah realized that she was afraid. She was afraid of making the wrong choice and facing the consequences, but she also realized that fear was not a good reason to compromise her principles. Good police officers had to make difficult decisions all the time. They had to be brave enough to do what was right, even when it was scary. Sarah thought about the oath she had taken when she became a police officer. She had promised to serve and protect the community. She had promised to uphold the law without favor or prejudice. She had promised to be worthy of the trust that people placed in her. Those promises had not come with exceptions. The oath did not say uphold the law unless it makes you uncomfortable, or serve and protect everyone except your boss. The promises were absolute and unconditional. Sarah opened her citation book and looked at the blank form again. She thought about what information she would need to fill it out. The date, time, and location were easy. The violation was clear, speeding 15 miles over the limit. The driver's information was right there on his license. But filling out the form was not just about recording facts. It was about making a statement about who Sarah was as a police officer. It was about showing what she believed in and what she stood for. It was about proving that she had the integrity to do her job properly, no matter how difficult the circumstances. Sarah picked up her pen and started to fill out the citation. Her hand was shaking slightly, but her writing was clear and neat. She wrote down Chief Harrison's name, address, and driver's license number. She recorded the date, time, and location of the violation. She noted that he had been driving 40 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour zone. As Sarah filled out the form, she felt a strange sense of calm coming over her. The decision was made. She was doing what she knew was right. She was upholding the law equally for everyone, just as she had promised to do when she became a police officer. Sarah finished filling out the citation and tore it from the book. She folded it carefully and put it in her shirt pocket. Then she got out of her patrol car and walked back toward Chief Harrison's vehicle. With each step, Sarah felt more confident in her decision. She was not giving Chief Harrison a ticket to be mean or to show off. She was giving him a ticket because he had broken the law, and because treating him fairly was the right thing to do. Sarah reached Chief Harrison's car and knocked gently on the window. Chief Harrison rolled it down and looked up at her with an expectant expression. Sarah could not tell from his face what he was hoping she would do. "Chief Harrison," Sarah said in a clear, professional voice, "I've made my decision." Sarah stood beside Chief Harrison's car with the citation in her pocket. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was clear. She had made her decision, and she was going to follow through with it. She was going to treat Chief Harrison exactly like any other driver who had been caught speeding. "Chief Harrison," Sarah said, her voice steady and professional. "After considering all the facts of this traffic stop, I am issuing you a citation for exceeding the speed limit. You were traveling 40 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, which is 15 miles over the posted limit." Chief Harrison looked at Sarah for a moment without saying anything. His expression was unreadable. Sarah could not tell if he was surprised, angry, or pleased with her decision. The silence seemed to last forever, but it was probably only a few seconds. Finally, Chief Harrison nodded slowly. "I understand, Officer Martinez," he said. His voice was calm and respectful. "You're doing your job, and I respect that. I was speeding, and I deserve the consequences for my actions." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Chief Harrison was not angry. He was not going to argue or try to change her mind. He was accepting the citation like any responsible citizen should. This made Sarah feel much better about her decision. Sarah pulled the citation from her pocket and unfolded it. "Sir, I need to explain the details of this citation to you," she said. "The fine for this violation is $150. You have several options for handling this ticket. Chief Harrison listened carefully as Sarah explained his options. He could pay the fine by mail or online within 30 days. He could contest the ticket in court if he believed he was not guilty. Or he could attend traffic school to reduce the fine and keep points off his driving record. The court date is printed on the citation, Sarah continued. If you choose to contest the ticket, you need to appear in court on that date. If you choose to pay the fine, you can do so without going to court. Do you have any questions about these options? Chief Harrison shook his head. No questions, Officer Martinez. You've explained everything very clearly. I appreciate your professionalism. Sarah handed the citation to Chief Harrison through the car window. Their hands touched briefly as he took the paper from her. Sarah noticed that his hands were steady and calm. He was handling the situation with dignity and grace. Chief Harrison looked at the citation for a moment, reading the details Sarah had written. This is very thorough, he said. You've documented everything properly. Your handwriting is neat and easy to read. This is exactly the kind of professional work I expect from my officers. Sarah was surprised by Chief Harrison's praise. She had expected him to be at least a little upset about getting a ticket. Instead, he seemed to be evaluating her work as if this were a training exercise. His reaction was making Sarah feel more confident about her decision. Thank you, sir, Sarah said. I tried to follow all the proper procedures. I want to make sure everything is documented correctly. Chief Harrison folded the citation and put it in his shirt pocket. Martinez, I want you to know something, he said. What you did tonight took real courage. It would have been easy to give me a warning and avoid any potential conflict, but you chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. Sarah felt her cheeks getting warm. She was not used to receiving praise from Chief Harrison, especially in a situation like this. I was just doing my job, sir, she said. You taught me that the law applies to everyone equally. I was trying to follow that principle. Chief Harrison smiled for the first time since Sarah had recognized him. You were doing more than just your job, Martinez. You were upholding the integrity of this police department. You were showing that we don't have different rules for different people. That's exactly the kind of officer this community needs. Sarah felt proud but also a little embarrassed by Chief Harrison's words. She had been so worried about making the right decision that she had not thought about the bigger picture. Now she could see that her choice had implications beyond just this one traffic stop. Sir, Sarah said, can I ask you something? Are you going to contest the ticket in court? Chief Harrison thought for a moment. No, I don't think so, he said. I was clearly speeding and you documented it properly. It would be a waste of the court's time for me to contest a ticket when I'm obviously guilty. I'll probably just pay the fine and move on. Sarah nodded. She was glad that Chief Harrison was going to accept responsibility for his actions. It showed that he really meant what he said about everyone being equal under the law. Is there anything else you need from me tonight? Chief Harrison asked. Sarah shook her head. No, sir. You're free to go. Please remember to watch your speed, especially in residential areas like this one. There are children who live on this street. Chief Harrison started his car engine. I will definitely be more careful in the future, he said. Thank you for the reminder and thank you for doing your job properly tonight. Sarah stepped back from the car as Chief Harrison prepared to leave. She watched as he checked his mirrors and put on his turn signal before pulling away from the curb. Even after getting a speeding ticket, he was driving carefully and following all the traffic rules. As Chief Harrison's car disappeared down the street, Sarah walked back to her patrol car. She sat in the driver's seat and took a deep breath. The traffic stop was over and she had survived it. She had done what she believed was right, and Chief Harrison had not been angry with her. Sarah picked up her radio to let the dispatcher know that the traffic stop was complete. Unit 23 to dispatch, she said. Traffic stop is complete. Returning to patrol. Copy that, Unit 23, the dispatcher replied. Everything okay out there? Sarah thought about how to answer that question. Everything was more than okay. She had just passed one of the biggest tests of her career. She had proven to herself and to her boss that she could be trusted to do the right thing under pressure. Everything is fine, Sarah said into the radio. Just a routine traffic stop. But Sarah knew that nothing about tonight had been routine. She had stopped the chief of police and given him a ticket for speeding. She had chosen integrity over comfort and fairness over favoritism. She had shown that she was the kind of police officer that Chief Harrison had hoped she would become when he hired her 3 years ago. Sarah started her patrol car and began driving slowly down Maple Avenue again. The street was quiet and peaceful, just as it had been before the traffic stop. But something had changed for Sarah. She felt more confident in her abilities as a police officer. She felt proud of the choice she had made. Sarah did not know what would happen tomorrow when she saw Chief Harrison at work. She did not know how the other officers would react when they heard about what had happened, but she knew that she had done the right thing, and that knowledge gave her peace. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the police station feeling nervous. She had not slept well after her shift ended. She kept thinking about the traffic stop and wondering what would happen when she saw Chief Harrison at work. Would he act differently toward her? Would he be angry that she had given him a ticket? Sarah parked her personal car in the employee parking lot and walked toward the station entrance. She could see several other officers arriving for their shifts. Everyone seemed normal and relaxed. Sarah wondered if they knew what had happened the night before. As Sarah entered the station, she saw Officer Mike Stevens at the front desk. Mike had been with the department for 8 years and was known for his sense of humor. He looked up when Sarah walked in and gave her a big smile. Well, Mike said with a grin. If it isn't our very own traffic enforcement specialist. I heard you had an interesting night last night. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The news had already spread through the department. She wondered how many people knew about the traffic stop and what they were saying about it. I don't know what you mean, Sarah said, trying to act casual. It was just a normal shift. Mike laughed and shook his head. Come on, Martinez. Word travels fast around here. Everyone knows you stopped the chief last night and gave him a ticket. That takes some serious guts. Sarah looked around the station lobby. A few other officers were nearby, and they were all looking at her with curious expressions. Some seemed impressed, while others looked amused. Sarah could not tell what anyone was really thinking. I was just doing my job, Sarah said quietly. I treated him like any other driver who was speeding. Officer Stevens nodded approvingly. That's exactly what you should have done. But not everyone would have had the courage to actually write the ticket. Most officers would have given the chief a warning and moved on. Before Sarah could respond, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Martinez, can I see you in my office, please? It was Chief Harrison. His voice sounded serious and professional, just like it always did at work. Sarah turned around and saw Chief Harrison standing in the hallway. He was wearing his uniform and had the same authoritative presence he always had at the station. He looked completely different from the man in casual clothes she had stopped the night before. Yes, sir, Sarah said. She followed Chief Harrison down the hallway toward his office. She could feel the eyes of the other officers watching her as she walked. Everyone was probably wondering what Chief Harrison was going to say to her. Chief Harrison's office was spacious and well-organized. The walls were covered with certificates, awards, and photos from his many years in law enforcement. His desk was neat and clean with only a few papers and his computer visible. Please have a seat, Chief Harrison said, gesturing to one of the chairs in front of his desk. Sarah sat down and tried to look calm even though her heart was racing. Chief Harrison closed the office door and walked around to sit behind his desk. He looked at Sarah for a moment without saying anything. His expression was serious, and Sarah could not tell what he was thinking. Martinez, Chief Harrison began, I want to talk to you about what happened last night. Sarah took a deep breath. Yes, sir. I understand if you're upset about the citation. I tried to make the right decision, but I know it was an unusual situation. Chief Harrison held up his hand to stop her. Martinez, I'm not upset about the citation. In fact, I want to commend you for the way you handled that traffic stop. Sarah was surprised. She had expected Chief Harrison to be at least a little annoyed about getting a ticket. Instead, he seemed to be praising her for it, sir, Sarah said, confused. Chief Harrison leaned forward in his chair. Martinez, what you did last night was exactly what I hoped you would do. You treated me fairly and equally, just like any other citizen. You didn't let my position influence your decision. That shows real integrity. Sarah felt a wave of relief, but she was still confused about why Chief Harrison seemed so pleased. I was just following the training you gave me, sir. You always said the law applies to everyone equally. Chief Harrison nodded. That's right. And last night you proved that you really believe in that principle. You showed that you're willing to uphold it even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Chief Harrison opened his desk drawer and pulled out the citation Sarah had given him the night before. He placed it on his desk where both of them could see it. I've been thinking about this ticket all morning, Chief Harrison said, and I've decided that I'm going to do something special with it. Sarah looked at the citation on the desk. "What do you mean, sir?" Chief Harrison smiled. "I'm going to have this framed and hung on my office wall. It's going to serve as a reminder that no one in this department is above the law, including me. It's also going to remind me that I hired officers with real integrity." Sarah was amazed. She had never expected Chief Harrison to react this way. She had thought he might be embarrassed about getting a ticket, but instead he seemed proud of it. "Sir, you don't have to do that," Sarah said. "I don't want to embarrass you or make you uncomfortable." Chief Harrison shook his head. "Martinez, you're not embarrassing me. You're making me proud. When I hired you 3 years ago, I saw potential in you. Last night, you showed me that my judgment was correct." Chief Harrison stood up and walked around his desk. He sat on the edge of the desk facing Sarah, making the conversation feel more personal and less formal. "Can I tell you something, Martinez?" Chief Harrison said. "That traffic stop last night was actually a test, though, not the kind you might think." Sarah looked confused. "I thought you said it wasn't a test, sir." Chief Harrison nodded. "You're right. I didn't plan it as a test. I really was speeding and you really caught me. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. Last night was one of those tests." Chief Harrison explained that he had been hearing rumors about some officers in the department showing favoritism to friends and family members. He had been concerned about maintaining the integrity of the police force, but he had not known how to address the problem. "When you stopped me last night, you faced the same choice that every officer faces when they encounter someone they know," Chief Harrison said. "You could have given me special treatment or you could have done your job properly. You chose to do your job." Sarah began to understand why Chief Harrison was so pleased with her decision. It was not just about one traffic ticket. It was about proving that the department still had officers who could be trusted to do the right thing. "Sir," Sarah said, "I have to admit, I was really scared about making that decision. I didn't want to upset you or hurt my career." Chief Harrison looked at Sarah with a serious expression. "Martinez, I want you to remember something. Any supervisor who would punish an officer for doing their job properly is not worth working for. I would never hold it against you for upholding the law." Chief Harrison returned to his chair behind the desk. "In fact, Martinez, your actions last night have convinced me that you're ready for more responsibility. I'm recommending you for the community policing specialist position that's opening up next month." Sarah's eyes widened. The community policing position was something she had wanted for a long time. It would involve working more closely with neighborhood groups and schools. It was exactly the kind of work that had drawn her to law enforcement in the first place. "Sir, are you serious?" Sarah asked. Chief Harrison nodded. "Completely serious. You've shown that you have the integrity and judgment needed for that position. The community needs officers they can trust, and last night proved that you're exactly that kind of officer." Sarah felt overwhelmed with gratitude and pride. What had started as the most stressful moment of her career was turning into one of the best days she had ever had at work. 3 weeks had passed since the night Sarah stopped Chief Harrison for speeding. The story had spread throughout the Millbrook Police Department and eventually reached the local newspaper. The headline read, "Local Officer Shows Integrity by Citing Police Chief." The article praised both Sarah for her fairness and Chief Harrison for accepting the ticket gracefully. Sarah was sitting at her new desk in the community policing office. Chief Harrison had kept his promise and promoted her to the community policing specialist position. Her new job involved working with schools, neighborhood groups, and local businesses to prevent crime and build better relationships between the police and the community. The framed speeding ticket now hung on the wall in Chief Harrison's office, just as he had promised. Below it was a small plaque that read, "Equal justice under law, no exceptions." Many visitors to the chief's office asked about the ticket, and Chief Harrison was always happy to tell the story. Sarah's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Mrs. Rodriguez from Maple Avenue, the same street where Sarah had stopped Chief Harrison. "Officer Martinez," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "I wanted to call and thank you for what you did a few weeks ago. My neighbors and I heard about you giving Chief Harrison a ticket for speeding on our street. We think you're very brave." Sarah was touched by the call. "Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. I was just doing my job." "No," Mrs. Rodriguez insisted. "You were doing more than your job. You were showing us that the police really do care about keeping our neighborhood safe. Even when it's hard, you did the right thing." After the call ended, Sarah reflected on how much her life had changed since that night. The other officers in the department treated her with new respect. Some had told her they admired her courage. Others said they hoped they would be as brave if they ever faced a similar situation. Officer Stevens had joked that Sarah was now known as the officer who ticketed the E. Chief, but he said it with admiration rather than mockery. Even the veteran officers who had been skeptical of young cops now treated Sarah as an equal. Sarah's new position in community policing was everything she had hoped it would be. She visited schools to talk to children about safety. She attended neighborhood meetings to discuss crime prevention. She worked with local business owners to address their security concerns. The best part of her new job was seeing how the community responded to her. People who had heard about the traffic stop often approached her to say they respected her integrity. Parents told their children to look up to Officer Martinez as an example of doing what's right. Chief Harrison had also kept his word about the ticket. He had paid the $150 fine without contesting it. He even attended traffic school to remove the points from his driving record. When reporters asked him about it, he said he wanted to set a good example for other drivers in the community. The incident had brought positive attention to the Millbrook Police Department. Other police chiefs from around the state called Chief Harrison to ask about his leadership style. Several law enforcement magazines wrote articles about the importance of accountability and integrity in police work. Sarah received a letter from the State Police Academy asking her to speak to new recruits about ethics and decision-making. The academy instructor said that Sarah's story was being used as a case study in their training program. 1 month after the traffic stop, Sarah was invited to speak at the monthly city council meeting. Mayor Johnson introduced her as an example of the high-quality officers serving the community. Sarah talked about the importance of treating everyone fairly and following the law equally. That night I had to make a choice, Sarah told the city council. I could have taken the easy way out and given Chief Harrison a warning. But I knew that the right thing to do was to treat him like any other citizen. The law means nothing if we don't apply it equally to everyone. The council members applauded Sarah's speech. Several citizens in the audience stood up to show their appreciation. Sarah felt proud to serve a community that valued integrity and fairness. After the meeting, Chief Harrison approached Sarah in the parking lot. Martinez, I want you to know how proud I am of you, he said. Not just for that night, but for how you've handled everything since then. You've shown real leadership. Chief Harrison had more news for Sarah. I've been talking to the county sheriff about a joint task force on community policing. They want someone from our department to lead the initiative. I recommended you for the position. Sarah was amazed. The county position would be a significant step forward in her career. It would involve working with multiple police departments to develop new community policing programs. Sir, I don't know what to say, Sarah replied. Thank you for believing in me. Chief Harrison smiled. Martinez, I believed in you the day I hired you. That night 3 weeks ago just confirmed what I already knew. You have the integrity and judgment to be a leader in law enforcement. As Sarah drove home that evening, she thought about how one difficult decision had changed her entire career. She had been afraid that giving Chief Harrison a ticket would hurt her future with the police department. Instead, it had opened doors she never expected. Sarah realized that doing the right thing often requires courage, but it also brings rewards that go beyond personal gain. By treating Chief Harrison fairly, she had earned the respect of her colleagues and her community. She had proven that justice really could be equal for everyone. The speeding ticket that hung in Chief Harrison's office had become more than just a citation. It was a symbol of integrity, courage, and the principle that the law applies to everyone equally. It reminded everyone who saw it that good police officers are willing to do their duty, regardless of who they encounter. Sarah had learned an important lesson that night on Maple Avenue. Sometimes the hardest decisions are also the most important ones. Sometimes doing what's right requires facing your fears and trusting in your principles. And sometimes, when you have the courage to do the right thing, everything else falls into place. As Sarah pulled into her driveway, she felt grateful for the opportunity to serve her community as a police officer. She looked forward to her new role with the county task force and the chance to help other officers learn about community policing. The story of Officer Martinez and Chief Harrison became legendary in Millbrook. Parents told it to their children as an example of integrity. Police instructors used it to teach new recruits about ethics. And Sarah carried the lesson with her for the rest of her career. In law enforcement, as in life, everyone is equal under the law. Years later, when Sarah had become a police chief herself, she would tell young officers about the night she stopped her boss for speeding. She would explain that integrity is not just about following rules when it's easy. Real integrity means doing what's right even when it's difficult, uncomfortable, or scary. And in her own office, Sarah would keep a copy of that famous speeding ticket framed on her wall, just as Chief Harrison had done. It would serve as a daily reminder that being a good police officer means treating everyone with fairness, respect, and equality under the law.